Coming up next, a 1,500-year-old mummy with a massive head wound.
That would have been fatal instantly.
Are these the remains of a Christian who died at the hands of Roman soldiers? Or was this a desert trader murdered by nomadic invaders?
They certainly would have killed him.
To solve this mystery, archaeologist Scotty Moore joins a team of experts excavating a pit filled with incredibly preserved mummies in the remote desert of Egypt.
So you're saying this is a Christian mummy?
My name is Scotty Moore. Archaeology is my obsession. I look into the lives of ancient people by examining bones and bodies. My investigations take me to remote and dangerous dig sites all around the globe. These are the ultimate cold cases. The problem with solving them? The victims are thousands of years old.
Archaeologist Scotty Moore has traveled halfway around the world to investigate a stunning new find.
I'm here in Egypt, and I've made my way to a town called El Fashion, which is a city on the Nile about 100 miles south of Cairo. Now, not far from here, archaeologists have made an incredible discovery. A graveyard full of mummies, but not mummies that have anything to do with the time of the pharaohs. And there's one in particular that stands out, a body that didn't die from natural causes.
If archaeologists can solve this mystery, they will shed light on the little understood time in Egypt after the fall of the pharaohs. Scotty must make his way further up the Nile to Tel El-Hiba, a modern town built near the remains of the ancient fortress city, Tujoy. The Nile has always been the heart of Egypt. Traders rode the flow north to the sea or used the winds to sail south against the current to the center of the Upper Kingdom. Farmers have worked the fertile banks for thousands of years. This is the reason that foreigners, Greeks, Persians, and Romans sought to control it for centuries. Strategically located on the river between Upper and Lower Egypt, Tujoy was a thriving trading outpost. To protect the city from invasion, the pharaohs built a wall around the settlement that stood for centuries. But by the 1st century AD, Rome had taken all of Egypt, including Tujoy. Archaeologists Dr. Carol Redmond and Dr. Robert Yohe are uncovering more mummies in a vast graveyard just outside the fortress wall.
Morning. Oh, hi, Carol. I'm Scotty.
Hi, Scotty.
Hey, Scotty, nice to meet you. Glad to know you.
So these are the ruins of the ancient city of Tujoy. How long was the city occupied?
This is a site that's been occupied for, we think, probably 1,500 years or more. We know that it was founded about 1070 BCE because we have stamped bricks around the city wall that date it. And in fact, the whole area around here is cemeteries, and they're different ages.
So why are you focusing on this area? What's so interesting about this place?
Well, we have one burial that seems to be a large mass burial. We have a number of bodies that were put in at the same time. We have a pit that was dug and a bunch of mummies actually put one on top of another.
Really stacked like cordwood.
Stacked like cordwood.
But we don't know why they were buried like this.
Right.
What's really exciting about this is that we think that we may be looking at a transition from pagan techniques of mummification, which are very complex and required a considerable period of time, to something as more abbreviated and still accomplishes the same task of preserving the body.
So these guys seem to be Coptic.
Coptic? The Coptics are the Christians in Egypt. So you're saying this is a Christian mummy?
4th to 6th century AD.
Is this the mummy that I came to look at?
Oh, no, we've got that fellow up in the mummy shack, as we like to call it.
Ancient Egyptian mummification was an elaborate process that required the removal of a body's internal organs, then packing it in salt for 70 days to dry. The ancient Egyptians believed that this would preserve the body for the afterlife. Because early Christians believed a body needed to be buried within 3 days, they could not have gone through this traditional 70-day process.
Oh, wow, look at that.
It strikes me how different these Coptic mummies look from traditional Egyptian mummies.
The cordage, the linen. Oh, and the smell.
Yeah, I told you that.
Oh my God.
One of the things it does preserve is the pungent aroma.
These cords are so intricately woven. There's this crisscross pattern similar to that mummy down at the dig site.
Did you notice the coloring on the cords? It's just unbelievable.
It's incredible. You can see the reds,
yeah,
blacks.
Yeah, there's some brown, kind of reddish brown, tan. This is at least 1,400 years old, maybe 1,500 years old. One of the things that's unique about some of these mummies is that they will have this facial projection. They have this padding over the skull, over the face, and you've got about this much of the portion that's covered here is all padding.
So why is this padding here? I've never seen that.
We're not exactly sure why. What is really interesting, additionally, about this individual is that he was packed in natron.
Oh, the salt.
The salt, yes.
The salt dries out the body and prevents
Exactly.
it from decomposing. They were actually preserving the body in the ground instead of going through the more elaborate 70-day mummification process. So let's take a look at what we have under these wrappings.
And you can
And the smell is you again.
Yes, yes, it
I'd
does.
gotten used to that.
Oh no, oh no.
Oh, wow, it just keeps coming.
And we can, first thing that we notice is massive quantities of natron. You can see here, yeah, this is all natron. You can see this is where it was placed between the legs.
They just picked huge chunks of it.
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, originally I think it was like blue salt, but then they just packed the body. And what we're seeing here is consolidated because of the body fluids have been soaked into it. And that's why you see the coloring there.
That's great. That's
yeah.
Fluid soaked salt.
Yeah, nice. Yeah.
Oh, so I'm gonna put that back.
Okay, you can do that.
Right there's between his legs.
Right.
Let's see.
Okay. And there, so if we lift that off the face.
Amazing preservation.
Preservation of the bone is uncanny. There's still a lot of grease in the bone.
The neck, it's all attached. Oh my God. This is part of his eyeball right here.
It's still preserved.
It's just, I've honestly never seen anything like this. And like you say, the grease on the bones. He's juicy.
Yes, he is quite juicy now.
The characteristics of the skull and the body size suggest male, but we actually have preserved male genitalia, so we know he was a man.
But most impressive are the teeth.
He does have really good teeth, doesn't he? And there's certainly not very much calculus or plaque buildup here. I don't really see any obvious caries or cavities on him either.
No.
So that's suggesting that his diet was probably pretty good. And with such elaborate wrappings, he would probably be at least middle class, maybe upper class. And it looks like all of the molars have come in. So we've got the sutures on the top of the skull that have all fused together. Okay, so probably around 20 to 30 years old. When you see a body like this, I mean, you really got to think about him as a person.
Yeah.
So, since he may have been Coptic, I was thinking we should give him a good Coptic name, maybe something like Arsani. But the big question I have is, why did he die?
Right, well, and we can take a look at that.
Okay.
Yeah, so you ready?
What do you got? What am I looking at?
Okay, take a look at the back of the skull. One piece, but you can see the back of the skull there.
Oh my God. Something hit him in the back of the head.
Yes, it did. And that is likely because of death. There's no healing whatsoever.
No, definitely not.
And certainly an injury of that magnitude would have been fatal.
That would have been fatal instantly. This is the mystery we need to solve. What caused this trauma to Arsani's skull?
So there's a couple of possibilities that immediately come to mind. One, we could be looking at homicide, someone deliberately
Absolutely.
hit in the back. Two, this could be an accident of some kind.
That's
He
true.
could have been hit. Three, he could have been involved in some kind of battle or war.
That's true.
This is where the answers are going to lie.
Along the Nile, in the middle of Egypt, archaeologist Scotty Moore is examining a mummy believed to be a Christian that appears to have died from a severe head wound.
I'm going to figure out what happened to this person. I really need to know as much as I can about the bodies.
One of the things that we see right away is that there's no evidence of organ removal. Frequently what you would see in the pharaonic period is that there'd be incisions in the side and the organs would have been removed through those, but we don't really see anything that's quite like that.
That's more proof that we're dealing with a later period.
Correct.
mummy.
It's more likely he's from the Roman or late Roman period, from the 1st century AD on, after the conquest.
If he was a Christian, then maybe the starting point here would be to find out what Christians were experiencing, what they were doing, what their lives were like in this part of the world.
Rome conquered Egypt in 30 BC and made the country a province of the empire. But within a century, a new religion, Christianity, was spreading across the Mediterranean. In Egypt, the religion took hold, but Rome was determined to crush it. Some of the faithful fled into the desert to avoid persecution. It's in these places that monasteries later began to flourish in the 4th century AD.
Well, I've crossed Egypt and come to a place called Wadi Natrun. And it's interesting because in this area, the salt, the natron that was used to mummify Arsani probably came from this place. But I haven't come all this way to see salt. I've come to see this, the monastery of St. Bishoy. It's one of the oldest Christian monasteries anywhere in the world. And you can actually see how high these walls are. It really gives you a sense of how dangerous it would have been for early Christians. Now, if Arsani had been a Christian, then to understand his life, his death, his burial, I've got to understand Egyptian Christianity.
Christianity began to spread in Egypt after St. Mark, an apostle of Jesus, started preaching in Alexandria in the middle of the 1st century AD. Some of the first Christian churches in the world were founded in Egypt at this time.
Father, when most people think of Egypt, I think that they picture pyramids, pharaohs, and gods like Horus, Osiris. But I'm really interested to learn from you more about Christianity, specifically early Christianity in Egypt.
Christianity started in Egypt very early.
St. Mark, right?
St. Mark.
And that was around 40 AD, correct?
Yes, around 40 AD, 42 he came to Egypt.
42.
He found that the soil was ready to receive Christianity.
And so how quickly did Christianity spread through the country?
It spread very quickly because the people were ready.
Right. When we get to about the year 300, the Roman emperors, and the Romans were controlling Egypt during that time. They outlawed Christianity.
Yes.
So those who remained Christian and refused to give up their beliefs, what happened to those people?
They were killed.
They were actually murdered for their faith.
Yes.
The mummy that I'm investigating has a terrible, fatal head wound. My question to you is,
Did the Christians mummify any of the martyrs?
No.
They didn't?
No, because there was no need. No need because we believe in the resurrection of bodies.
So do you think then the mummification stops when the Christians come to Egypt?
It is documented also in the history that it is known that there is no mummies from the beginning of Christianity, according to my knowledge.
We've all heard of this idea of Christians being fed to the lions and being persecuted, and it's something that we always have in the back of our heads, but we never actually think about it. I think I may actually have evidence here. I know that the Father doesn't believe that Christians could have been mummified. The archaeologists believe that Arsani was a Christian and he was mummified.
and if the archaeologists are right, then we could be looking at an early Christian martyr.
Christianity continued to spread in Egypt in the 3rd and 4th centuries AD. Though the religion flourished in desert sanctuaries, the Christians were still within reach of the iron fist of the Roman Empire.
So I've crossed the Nile, and I've come to the site of Fog El Gamoos. And here I'm going to meet the archaeologist C. Wilfred Griggs, who's been excavating this area for over 25 years. And he's found literally hundreds of what he believes to be Christian mummies. More tantalizing than that, it seems that some of these Christians have been brutally murdered. And it's possible that some of them could be victims of Roman persecution. Now, Professor, this mummy is really interesting because it looks very similar to the one I was telling you about, the man Arsani from Tel El Eba. And just like Arsani, this mummy's got this very nice linen wrapping and then the cordage in this kind of crisscross diagonal pattern.
These ribbons that we have on this burial are typical of ribbons that we find on Christian burials.
How would you date this? What time period is this from?
The pottery that was found with this particular burial is from about mid to late 4th century. So this is in about that time period.
I understand that this mummy and many of the other mummies you found were buried with their heads pointed west, a traditional Christian burial method. When did this method begin here?
The head west burials began to appear at some time during the latter part of the 1st century, and they continue until the end of the cemetery about 400 years later.
That's precisely when Christianity was taking hold here. What else tells you these are Christian?
Then we find crosses, small fish. We find other burial goods like small wine drinking cups.
And those are artifacts commonly associated with Christianity. This is actually a very important point because although Arsani doesn't have the grave goods, the crosses, the fish, he does have wrappings and cordage that looks exactly like this. And he's also buried in an east-west orientation with his head facing to the west. So those clues really suggest that Arsani was a Coptic Christian. And I talked to a father of a Coptic Christian monastery, and he was very, very adamant in his belief that early Christians, any Christians, would not mummify their dead. And if we find a mummy, even if it's from the right time period, it can't possibly be Christian.
And I think it's fair to say that Christians are known to have borrowed in many ways from the cultures in which they live.
The mummy we're studying, Arsani, died from a severe head wound. I understand that you discovered several mummies with signs of head trauma.
There was one particular part of the cemetery we excavated some years ago where the incidence of traumatic death in the adult population was 58%.
58%?
58.
That's interesting. So it's all in one location. That could suggest to me then that it was one period of time where there was a lot of violence going on. Oh, wow, that looks like it could be something sharp like a sword, actually.
Yep, exactly so. That would have been extremely traumatic. Now, the next one we have is of a different type of trauma. In this case, we have a sharp instrument coming horizontally, and you can see the smooth edge here.
That's a metal
and you can
sword.
See that it started radiating.
Oh, no, that's very interesting because this radiating fracture is very similar to the one we see.
Is that right?
On Arsani, yeah. This radiating fracture right here.
But sometimes we have, as in this particular instance, clearly a blow to the skull, but this person didn't die immediately because there's some healing that took place here.
Now that's an excellent point, because if you look here, you can actually see it has healed back. So he didn't die immediately from that wound.
Must have had a terrible headache.
But Arsani didn't have any evidence of bone regrowth, so he didn't live. He didn't survive that wound. That's the wound that killed him.
But we found that the traumatized burials occurred somewhere between the middle of the 3rd century and the latter part of the 4th century, placing it right in the time when the Romans were persecuting Christians for their beliefs.
So you couldn't have houses of worship. You didn't want to show anything that indicated you were a Christian. Basically, what we've learned here is that it's now very possible that Arsani, living when he did, being a Christian, could have been persecuted by the Romans under the orders from the emperors, and that blow to the back of the head was actually from a soldier or someone else who was actually trying to persecute and kill the Christians.
Coming up next.
It's clear, this was no accident.
In the desert along the Nile, archaeologist Scotty Moore is investigating the death of a man who died from a severe head wound. Archaeologists believe Arsani was Christian and may have been a victim of Roman persecution.
Now that I've seen the kind of damage a sword would do to a skull, I've returned to Tel El Hiba to examine Arsani's body again.
Okay, we've got a maximum width of the injury of 25.4 millimeters and a maximum length of 39.7. So the estimate of the depth looks to be about 3 centimeters.
Now that I've had another look at the wound, it's clear that this was no accident. Arsani almost certainly was murdered. This isn't the kind of wound that you'd get from falling down.
Right, exactly. Right. What's really interesting is that you can actually see that it's oblong, and it really did crush the skull right here with a great deal of force. We have this huge radiating fracture.
So we're definitely not dealing with anything that's sharp and pointy like a spear.
No, not at all. It's clearly what we call a blunt instrument.
Blunt trauma.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe something like a mace, a club, even the handle of a sword.
That's possible. First thing I thought of when I saw this was a sling bullet, because sling bullets have about this size and this configuration.
Someone comes from behind and just throws it. That's got to be a pretty wicked throwing arm to cause damage like that. I mean, that's just something I'll definitely want to put some more thought into, but just talking to you and looking at this, it does seem like maybe a sling missile would be the thing to consider here. I mean, given the small size, but just the force. Well, there are a lot of possibilities as to how this wound could have been caused. And I think if I can get a better idea of how this wound was caused, I might be able to figure out who did this to Arsani.
Christianity was beginning to become a major religion in Egypt by the late 3rd century AD. But there were other dangers in the far-flung reaches of the empire. The desert trade routes were always vulnerable to raids by marauding nomads. One of the favored weapons of these nomads and Roman soldiers was a slingshot.
As I look out over the Nile here, I'm reminded of the fact that Hassani could have been a well-to-do trader or merchant. But whoever he was, somebody wanted him dead. I know that he died from a blow to the back of the head. But what caused that blow? I agree with Robert that a sling seems to be the most likely culprit, but I want to look at other period weapons to be sure.
Historian Andy Daly has collected some of the typical tools of ancient Egyptian and Roman warfare.
I see you've got all the weapons here.
We've got a good collection here.
All right.
What we did was we chose some weapons of opportunity here. Something we might find around here of Hiba.
Now, when I talked to Robert about this, we kind of came to the agreement that the wound on the back of Hassani's head looks like blunt force trauma.
Right.
So no spears, no pointy bits of the sword going in, nothing like that.
No javelins, nothing like that.
Okay, so we've got our Hassani replica right over here, yeah?
Right.
Okay, let's have a look at it. All right, so this is just a basic terracotta pottery here.
It'll represent the cranium of your body.
All right, here we go. Yeah, that works pretty well. And if there was brain matter in there and skin on the outside, it wouldn't have broken up.
This probably would have been a fatal wound, but it would not have shattered the head itself.
Right. So it could have caused the right shape and size wound. So we'll try this one now. This is that mace.
It's a stone mace.
This is a lot heavier. I was surprised to be able to break the pot with this guy down here, but this, I don't think I'll have much trouble with. Here we go. That just bashes right to pieces. This is definitely a surefire way to kill someone, but it may cause way too large of an injury.
But we now know why the ancient Egyptians used it.
All right, so the sword.
Well, swords would have been very rare.
But a Roman soldier might have had one. All right. Now I'll give it another shot. But I don't know. It certainly seems like a very awkward way to try and take somebody out. So this, I think I'm going to give up on.
Well, what we have now is the weapon I think is a prime candidate for our situation.
So you've just got basically the bullet and the sling here, right?
Right.
Now, the other thing I'm thinking, though, is that someone who had wielded this in the past would have known what they were doing.
Yes, definitely.
So I think I'm going to let Mahmoud take this shot at this.
Wow, that would be nearly a perfect match to Arsani's wound. All right, one more shot then.
Yes!
Wow, okay.
Nice shot! That took his head clean off, didn't it?
It certainly would have killed him.
Well, it's exactly what you would want in a weapon, and you didn't want anyone to know you were there.
Mm-mm.
You get far enough back, 50 meters, the guy doesn't even know what hits him. And with that first hit especially, it gives you the right kind of wound, it gives you the right location. That works.
And it fits the era we're looking at.
That one, and I think that smaller club. I think the mace and the sword don't make much sense. This looks like the right kind of weapon. So I've seen firsthand the kind of damage that blunt objects can do, especially weapons from this time period. But things like that mace are just too heavy. They cause too much damage. Things like that sword pommel are too weak. They can't do enough. But the slingshot, that's perfect because it's the right size, the right shape to create the damage we see in Asani's head. But to figure any of this out, I've still got to figure out when he died. Did he die early? Did he die late? Was he a victim of the Roman persecution? Or was he attacked by nomads out of the desert? If I can get a better idea who Arsani was and when he died, I just might be able to figure out what led to his tragic end and why he was buried in a mass grave.
Archaeologist Scotty Moore has returned to Tel El Hiba. Archaeologist and osteologist Dr. Robert Yohe and medical Dr. Keith Corver are looking inside Arsani's body to see what it reveals.
Dr. Corver here is doing some endoscopic work.
This is a fiber optic endoscope that's used for medical purposes.
I'd like to see that wound from the inside. I don't suppose there's any way we could get into the head.
Well, let me try. We'll start by going through the mouth and see how far we can get. And we get in just here to the back of the mouth and the top part of the vertebrae, and it stops. I can't get any farther. So we'll try again here through the nose. See how far in we can get. I can see into the base of the skull, and you can see that there really is no significant, there's a little tiny bit of shriveled up brain. That's all there is. Okay, right there. The stuff that you see hanging down like a mushroom from the top is shriveled up a little bit of brain.
Kidding.
That's the brain stem.
I'm looking at a 1,500-year-old brain.
Oh, man.
But I can't really see the wound. What about other parts of the body?
Going to take a look into the chest here, right through this hole that is here from the mummy. The most important thing you can see from a surface level is that the outside of the lungs are very, very black. And if you take a look here, you can see it gets shiny and black because it's been preserved.
That's absolutely amazing that it's preserved, though.
Yeah.
The carbon on the lungs, what does that suggest to you? I mean, is that just he's in an environment where there's lots of fires?
This is the equivalent of a 65-year-old man who smoked 2 packs a day for 40 years.
This is some serious inhalation. Is it possible Arsani was involved in some kind of craft that involved fire? Perhaps a metal worker, something like that?
I mean, his joints look good.
Right, but we can't see everything because flesh is covering most of the bone. But strenuous work seems unlikely because of his otherwise good health.
My guess would be probably domestic.
It's almost counterintuitive because we kind of think in the past people lived much cleaner lives. But just being inside a house without good ventilation and fires for years.
So that had nothing to do with his death. What other information can we get from the body?
Well, I've been doing some measurements on the skull, and what's interesting is that just based on the preliminary measurements that we've been able to take, it looks fairly consistent with what you see with modern Egyptians and with some of the Egyptians from the later periods.
So we're probably not dealing with some kind of migrant that's come here
It's no
from far
Nubian.
away.
It's probably not anyone from Europe.
Egypt had become a diverse country because of the conquests of the Persians, Greeks, and Romans. But it was among the natives of Egypt that Christianity took hold. Initially, the Romans saw no threat in the new religion among the Egyptians. But as it grew in cities like Alexandria and Cairo, the Romans understood it was a force to be reckoned with.
I'm inside a massive fortress built not by Egyptians, but by Romans around the 1st century AD, when Rome ruled pretty much all of Egypt. Now, 2,000 years ago, the Nile River would have come right up against these stones. In fact, the Romans built fortresses like this all up and down the Nile to protect their people and the people they ruled from outside enemies. Almost 2,000 years ago, this place, this fortress, was a stronghold of the Roman Empire. Though not welcomed, in the early years, Christians would have been protected from any number of threats. Enemies who wanted to attack, to ravage, to pillage, and destroy. In later years, 20 Christian Coptic churches were built, all within a mile of this fortress. While Christians were often persecuted during Roman rule, there were periods when they were tolerated. Things were about to change. In the year 303, the Roman Emperor Diocletian issued his infamous edict against Christians. Now, this legalized the destruction of Christian texts, the burning of holy places, and the imprisonment of church leaders, bishops, priests, and those who wouldn't convert back to Roman paganism would have been killed. Now, we know during this time, thousands upon thousands of Christians were killed here in Egypt, and this place could have become a bloody killing field. If Arsani, a Christian, lived at that time, his life would have been in great danger.
The mystery of the mummy Arsani has brought archaeologist Scotty Moore to the remote desert along the Nile in Egypt. Arsani, a young man, didn't die by accident, but a severe blow to the back of the head.
That would have been fatal instantly.
He was almost certainly a Christian. So was he the victim of brutal Roman persecution? Or was he killed in an attack by nomadic invaders? Determining when Arsani died could help explain why Arsani died so young. In 313 AD, the Roman Emperor Constantine finally legalized Christianity. The last of the most vicious Roman persecutions of Christians had come to an end.
One of the big questions I have right now is when. Now, if Arsani died around the year 300, then he may have actually been murdered by the Romans as part of the Christian persecutions. On the other hand, if he lived and died later, say around 500, then the persecutions would have been over and done with. And he may have been the victim of an argument or a robbery. There are a lot of possibilities right now. And I think what I need to do is get back down to that gravesite, look at the mummies, see how they're wrapped, see how they're buried, find any clue I can to help me pinpoint exactly when Arsani died.
Archaeologist Dina Heikkinen is an expert on ancient Coptic textiles. She has been examining the mummies' wrappings to try to understand who they were and when they lived.
So, first of all, tell me what you got set up here. I mean, this looks like the mummy that was out at the site earlier.
Right, this is mummy number 3.
It looks actually very similar to Arsani, both in terms of the wrappings and also the cordage in here.
He's going to be about from the same period, and you'll see the cordage, there's different colors there.
So you've got these crisscrossing pieces of cordage here. It's the geometric patterns that's characteristic of this period of Roman rule. The reds, the whites, or the tans, I guess I should say.
Yeah, it's the natural flax color.
And the blacks in here as well.
Right.
And this mummy was very heavy, so it's probably packed in large amounts of salt, just like Arsani was.
Exactly.
So this is characteristic of that time period then.
Correct.
But this mummy over here is different.
Right, what we have over here is a later burial. This is Mummy 8 that Jessica's working on. The cordage on this particular mummy is not fine at all.
Oh, it's loose.
It's very loose, not tightly woven, and he was pretty skeletonized. You do see some soft tissue, and on this one there was just a ritualistic sprinkling of natron over the body, so he didn't preserve as well as our other guy. These are two different shrouds that were on the body. This one here was the innermost shroud, and it's the most decorated, and you see it's stained with some of the fluids from the body. This is a flora and fauna scene. We have a vine that comes up and little flowers that are coming off of it. These are peacocks right here.
So right in here. I know that the peacock was an early Christian symbol. So we've got Christian symbology that's showing up here. As the country becomes more Christian, the people start to leave the old ways behind. So this mummy number 3 and Arsani are earlier than this mummy number 8.
Right.
So what kind of time period are we talking about for the tunics again?
I would say 5th to 7th century on these, and 4th to 6th on those. There's about 100 or 200 years difference.
And so is it possible that this mummy or Arsani could have come from the beginning of the 4th century, when the persecutions were still going on?
It's hard to say, but a guess is 4th to 6th.
Right. So the idea here is that styles change just like they do today. In this case, we've got finely woven cordage that signifies one time period, and later in time we get this beautiful tapestry, these tunics. This is later. This is the time period we're talking about for Arsani. By the middle of the 4th century, the Roman persecution of Christians had come to an end. So if Arsani died later than that, he probably didn't die a martyr. I'm getting closer. I'm going to figure this out.
If Arsani did not die at the hands of the Romans, then what could have happened in the desert sands along the Nile that led to his terrible end? Archaeologist Scotty Moore has traveled to Egypt to investigate the murder of a young man called Arsani. Arsani died of a powerful blow to the back of the head. He was buried with several other mummies. Medical doctor Keith Corver and archaeologist Robert Yohe are examining x-rays of some of those mummies in a lab in Cairo.
We've got evidence of clear erosion, the lack of the feet here.
This mummy is from right next to Arsani, and this one is from next to that. And you'll see that there's a broken bone here. This type of break right here was probably after the mummy had been buried and is a post-burial injury.
So this isn't something that would have killed him or been an injury that he sustained in life?
Yep.
Right.
By contrast, we have over here what appears to be an injury that occurred somewhere near the time of the person's death.
This injury right here is a spiral fracture of the femur.
That's the thigh bone, the strongest bone in the body.
It's a type of injury from a high-impact, high-velocity injury with a lot of force. You don't get this kind of injury from a simple fall.
So is it actually twisting as it breaks?
Right, that's exactly what it is. This obviously never had a chance to heal, and so we would assume that this was at the time of the person's death that this happened.
So this injury may not have been the cause of death itself, but there may have been other injuries, internal injuries, caused at the same time that resulted in death. So what do you think could have caused this? Do you think it could have been a blow from some kind of weapon? I mean, this kind of twisting...
Could have been someone who had fallen off of a chariot, someone who was pushed off of a cliff, someone who was smashed with a very violent weapon.
But this is really intriguing that you'd find right next to Arsani another victim of some kind of traumatic incident.
Yeah, we think so too, and that's why we're excited about it. I think our working hypothesis now is that what we're looking at is a group of people that were in some kind of conflict, and we're looking at the winners.
This does not look like a winner here.
These are the individuals that have the ability to be collected and treated properly and buried.
They had time to bury their dead in a careful way by the people who loved them.
Exactly. If they had lost, their bodies would have been left where they died in the desert. No one would have taken such care to wrap and bury them. This really suggests that something other than Roman persecution was going on here.
A wise man once told me that the sands of Egypt hold many secrets, but I think there'll be one less secret after today. This is a story of a man called Arsani, a young, attractive man who, like his ancestors, was mummified upon his death. But he's no ordinary mummy, because I believe that Arsani is a Christian. We know that Christianity swept through Egypt during this time.
Arsani is buried with his head to the west, a new Christian burial method and a break with centuries of ancient Egyptian tradition.
We also know he died an untimely death. He was killed by a vicious blow to the back of his head. So the question is, who would want to kill this young Christian? Now, at first I thought we had clear evidence for an early Christian martyr.
We know the Romans, under the orders from the emperors, sought to stamp out the flourishing new religion.
And there's evidence from other places in Egypt that Christians were killed savagely, brutally. But I had to follow the clues, and they tell me that Arsani wasn't a martyr.
The mummy wrappings, the linens, and cordage are characteristic of the 4th to 6th centuries AD, when the persecutions were coming to an end. And Arsani's fatal wound suggests something different about his death. The shape and location of the wound suggest a slingshot bullet launched from far off. Though Roman soldiers may have been skilled at the slingshot, the wound does not prove torture, persecution, or execution. It implies a battle of some kind, even an attack on the city itself.
I think as Roman control over Egypt waned, as soldiers left, the people became more and more vulnerable to attacks.
Nomadic raiders may have descended on this prosperous place in search of riches.
Arsani, like any of us, tried to defend the people that he loved. I don't know if he fought well or bravely, but in the end he died. But he didn't die in vain. There were people left behind that could care for his body, that could place it in the ground. And they didn't bury him alone. He's buried with other people who shared his fate that day.
Maybe people that fought and died alongside him.
And these people are placed in front of the entrance to the city, in this public space where people would walk by and see them. They would have been remembered as heroes until the sands cover this place and they're forgotten. But then we come along and bring the story to light.
A young man died defending his home and was lost to the sands of Egypt. Now, 1,500 years after Arsani's death, his story has finally been told.